Hello everyone, it's Matt here and welcome to part 2 of the OcTRAINber 2020 videos. So this is the final model and the conclusion. So obviously the last time I left off in part 1 the model was pretty much done, but just needed a few bits of tweaking and tidying up and completion, such as the roof and some of the smaller details. So now it is actually complete and here it is. So we have a couple of features on this model which weren't on the previous version that you saw in the video. So for example, the platform has now been finished off with a enclosure around this right hand end of the platform, and then we've also got these barriers which fold down to actually get you access to the cars. Now they actually don't quite reach probably as far over as they should, but they reach far enough over to actually meet the rail line, so they actually reach the roof, and that's primarily the main reason they only extend so far. And that is pretty similar to how they are on the real things from what photos I've seen, but obviously I yield to any experts who know a bit more or could probably go into a bit more detail about if they need to be, say, half stood to a stud longer. But for the moment, they look in keeping with the structure. They're actually in keeping with the little sort of barrier I've got at the ends, and they just generally look like they're about the right size. They come up to about waist height on a minifigure, and that's what the real life ones did, from what I can see. So again, it's all roughly in keeping, even if it's not perfectly in keeping with the real thing. So there are a few of the bits to the model which are complete. So obviously we've now got the roof on it. The roof is very simple. It's just the 2 deep slopes for the first 3 layers, followed by the 3 deep slopes for the top. The reason for that is that is again, that is based off a few real life examples I've seen of railroad buildings primarily, I think, so that you can have a little bit more of a peak toward where the walls are, and then also you can flatten it out for better weather protection or something along those lines. Although you could literally just use these 3 deep from the bottom all the way to the top. Another reason I would recommend at least 1 layer of the 2 deep is that with the way this building is constructed, the corners would be very weak unless you did use these 3 deep. That is something I will actually come to later. So other things that have been done for the outside of the model. There's been a few tweaks to some of the little bits and pieces. So for example, this door here, I'm pretty sure this was actually on the original model as well, but I have actually just filled in this gap at the top and done a few of the tweaks about it, so it actually fits in a bit better. The same again for this bit, there's a little infill over the top. I've kind of tried to eliminate any gap between the actual slats and the roof, but unfortunately I think it is just going to be one of those things where there is going to be a slight gap, and if you look at it at a slight angle you will see it, but normally you'll just see that there's an extra, should be another layer of clapboard on the top here, but there should be a layered and there isn't one. It's just an unfortunate necessity of the program. Also on the real thing, I could possibly tweak the way this is angled, so it does actually fit in a bit better. But again, the building is actually missing the guttering, which is on a nice platform. Yes, you're already carrying ice. Yes, you've already got water, but you kind of want to try and at least help protect the workers. And having water run off straight onto the doorway, even though you're trying to move ice blocks around, you'd still want to try and keep the doorway reasonably clean and as dry as possible, so you're not having to trip out or trip off anyway, especially considering if you've got this slapboard open, you're very close to actually falling onto the cars and possibly off the car you're trying to load as well. Panning us around to the back side, so obviously this is if Godzilla or somebody tore a chunk out the building, this is just to show you the inside of it. So obviously you see there is a little bit of platform inside where the doors would be, and again you can just about see that the doors for here actually have a little bit of a black banned so that you can't, although you could open them up, you wouldn't actually be able to get anything because you got black. And again, I'd probably be doing the same on this doorway onto the actual ice platform itself, that would actually get a black background, and that would mask any light coming in. You can sort of see that this window has a little surround preventing light coming in. And again, that is literally just a stack of 1x6 bricks right behind the window, just to mask the effect, just effectively to hide the fact that there is nothing in this building. It's all hollow. So obviously, if I do a unhide now, you can obviously the building just magically snaps being into its original completed state, and we're back to normal. The other thing that's a bit of an annoyance, and it's probably something that I could tweak a bit if I was building this in real life, is that the slat board between these door sections and the main wall sections don't actually tie in. Now obviously that is kind of realistic, because again, we're talking about a different base height for the start of the slat board, but again, ideally you'd try and keep it as close as possible. I could possibly tweak this slightly. The doorway could actually be a plate lower. There theoretically should be enough room to actually go a plate lower, but unfortunately the way LDD works, it's just not possible at the moment. So obviously again, that's a bit more of a real life change, but you can't actually do here. I've added in some more decking here, and some of the like gravelly sort of stuff. I'm not sure whether that was on the previous version, but I think I've tweaked it since the video at least. This end of the building is very plain. Again, realistically this should be a bit different, but I think because of the way I did the column, it's not as good as it could be. Again, it's something that could be changed, but I'm not too bothered about it at the moment. And again, we meet at this corner. The sides here actually do match up, but again, we have got that very slight gap. You can actually see daylight underneath. So obviously if this was going to be portable, you wouldn't necessarily mind the gap, because obviously the roof would be removable. But again, at that point you'd probably be sticking a interior into the building and that sort of thing. So that's pretty much it in terms of anything that wasn't done on the first video, I believe. So really the only other things, really the two main things that have been done since part one are the roof and the and this walkway here, and obviously there's been a few other things, sort of like neatening up, I would say is probably the best description compared to part one. The only other really things that could do with being changed on this digital model, and I have seen this on real life ones, is that this extension here is prime candidate for actually having stair access from ground level. There are quite a few ice platforms that had their own set of access stairs, and it actually would make sense that you would have access stairs up to this top floor, because obviously if you're getting workers in to lower the ice, you don't necessarily want them going in and then going up an internal staircase, because obviously you're talking about quite a lot of temperature changes. If you had them just going straight up to the ice platform itself, they're then going in and out of the main ice building doors to then actually get the ice out. So again, if I was going to do that, I would probably remove this window, probably move it to the opposite side of the building. Ice houses generally did not have many windows. Again, it's a risk of temperature leak. It's a bit more of an inconvenience for actually putting the building in. And although natural light is a bit better for you, it's not really required in an ice house. It's effectively a storage building more than anything else. So obviously you get ice in, and then you put ice into railroad cars. There's not really much else to the building. But aside from that, it's pretty much done. The staircase is pretty much the only real major addition I would do. Other than that, just extending the ice platform is probably the more bigger thing than anything else, because it's big enough to handle 2 cars, possibly 2.5. But again, if you extended it out, you could theoretically extend it another 2 columns or sections to each end, and that again would probably give you just about enough room to do 3 cars completely. But again, this is just a digital version for the competition. Obviously, if I was building this in real life, there'd obviously be a lot more changes. There's obviously be a lot more structural changes to ensure the integrity of the building, especially even though it should be fine for standalone purposes. If I was going to build it, obviously I'd have to take it to exhibition. So again, this little scene is a bit defunct because obviously I would be having mills modules. So these this section here, the all the walkway would probably have to be a custom job as a standalone item that wouldn't actually hook into the building. I'd probably change the base of it because at the moment it's got these 3 layers here. So I think you've got a line of tiles and these 2 here. So I'd probably change this around to probably either a solid base or possibly add a bit more detail to it. But again, it'd have to be removable. At the moment it's very much integrated into the building for partially a bit of height guidance, so the doors would match up, and partially just because I was being a bit lazy, and it helped size everything to actually have the ice platform and the house integrated as one construction. So again, that would have to be changed. I'd possibly change around some of the top as well, so possibly adding another extra bit of support towards the top, maybe a thinner or shallower angle of cross brace at the top as well, because at the moment you've only got the one line. You might possibly have enough room to move this down more towards the bottom and have a second one towards the top, but again, you've got to be really careful because you've got to make sure everything fits in, and there is a cross brace, so it might be that you actually lower one side of cross bracing and then have another one higher up at a different angle, possibly even invert them. It really depends on what's available in terms of real life building, because obviously the difference being is that I'm really restricted digitally in terms of what I can actually do with the camera and what I can do with the parts in LDD. In real life, obviously the wallet's the limit effectively, as well as size. So that's pretty much it for part 2. I'd just like to say thanks to Brick Model Railroader for running the contest again. Best of luck to anyone else, and although it is Boxing Day here in the UK, or the 26th of December, they haven't actually announced the winners at the time of recording. So, best of luck to those involved. Hopefully I win, but, there's been some really good entries this year, especially the physical models. So that's it from me for OcTRAINber part 2, and see you later.